Now, I get the pleasure of having to have this conversation with you today, and in English, no less, of course, which is also a comfort zone to me. Now, of course, everyone is no stranger to Stranger Things. We love your character, Vecna. We can't wait to dive in deeply with you about this character, too. So,
great, let's do it.
Let's have a seat. Let's get started. So, Jamie, I know that you actually visit Hong Kong quite often.
Yeah.
And how do you feel this time around? It's quite hot today.
It's really hot. It's always a pleasure to be here. I love this city so much. I have family and friends here that I love to see. I am, however, if anyone is wondering why my energy feels low, I am suffering from heat stroke. I managed to get very sick when we got here. So I'm feeling a little flat. But it's lovely to be back in your beautiful city, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
I feel like the energy from the crowd usually gets us in a better mood as well, right?
Exactly, that will keep me elevated, exactly.
Have you ever been to Hong Kong when it's less hot? The weather gets quite nice in December, actually.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I shot a movie called Emmanuel here and in Paris, and I was trying to remember what time of year it was that we were here. I think it was around March, so I think there were lots and lots and lots of storms. That's when it was like really, really stormy, and it wasn't as warm as it is now, so.
Which is quite nice as well.
It's
different environment.
For me, a blessing.
Well, I do hope you feel better soon. But again, we're so excited to have you here today, and we know that you've been acting for many years now. One of your more iconic roles were back in 2007. It's been quite some years now, but today we really want to dive into the character of Vecna, of course. We love this character, even though it's a character that partly we don't see your beautiful face, but you are acting so well into it. And I want to first talk about how this character feels to you, because, and I'm trying to relate to you on a level, I used to act as well, and I do feel like in acting, it's not always about the protagonist. Sometimes there's an antagonist role that also entices us, because even though it's quite evil inherently, there's also a humanistic side to this character, which makes that person very relatable and sympathetic to this character. And I feel like Vecna is one of those characters. Would you say?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, when I talk about him so often, I talk about the sort of young side of him. This idea of this loss of innocence is something that I'm really keen to explore. And when I joined and when I was given the opportunity to be this character, I definitely wanted to bring a level of humanity to him that meant that the audience hopefully could understand him. It wasn't my intention for, to make people fall in love with Vecna, but it was definitely, as an actor and as the person playing him, I needed to learn how to love him. I needed to learn how to understand him. I needed to learn where it was all coming from, and the emotions and the intentions that he's feeling are, at the end of the day, human in a way. I think for Vecna, it's all about this idea of resentment. And resentment, it's something that we can have as people. It's not necessarily something that I think is, beneficial for humanity. And I have described it as this idea of like the vine around the vein of love. It chokes out love. And in that sense, it is quite monstrous as well. So for me, it was just about going through his childhood, going through his experiences, and bringing that to life.
And I think that's what makes this series so interesting, because as we're watching, we always want to find out what are his motives, why is he the way he is. And like you said, I feel like sometimes maybe resentment does exist in us, and if that's unsolved and unresolved, then it becomes something that grows into something deeper and could cause that evilness in him as well.
Absolutely, and I think it's also this idea of rage is this protection from fear. He is ultimately, at the end of the day, a very young, lost boy, and this rage is this protector for him, you know. Stay away because the world has been bad to me.
That's right. I feel like we learned also that those who hurt people are usually the ones who are hurt, and it's a self-defense mechanism to do so. And when you were into this role, I think I read online that becoming Mr. What's-It was also quite a difficult role for you to embrace. Can you tell us more about that?
It was really challenging. Mr. What's-It was so hard. I played Henry in season 4, and I played Vecna in season 4, and I knew I'd be coming back for season 5. And then all of a sudden, in season 4, I have this ginormous manifesto where I say, the world is a lie, and I saw my parents as they truly were, and I felt like I didn't have to do that. And then I come back for season 5, and I'm just lying to all these children, which is terrifying. Like, it's so scary. Children are amazing because they can see through, the lies of adults, basically. So I'm sat with like 11 or 12 kids, just like being like, please let this go well. Like, please let this go well. So yeah, it was about kind of understanding why he was doing the things that he was doing as well, and where it was coming from. Was it the mind flayer? Was it him? Why was he recreating home? All of these like very in-depth, thought processes that I had.
But I must say that as an actor, it's also very rewarding when you can go through a role that really helps you navigate the different kind of emotions that you have as a human as well, the good and the bad as well. And we've seen you have so many iconic roles in the past as well. What do you think is a defining characteristic that makes a role so iconic and memorable beyond its first impression? Why is Vecna so beloved in a way, as bad as he is? It's hard.
It's always very difficult for me to talk about Vecna being beloved. I am the guy that played him. When somebody says this is an iconic character, I'm like, is it? I don't know. Like, I have so many great horror icons that I look up to, but I think with any character that people are close to, they identify with a part of themselves, or they can empathize with that character. It's not necessarily to say, oh, I agree with what that character is doing, but there is a level of empathy. I think also for something like Vecna, this was a huge team effort. It's not just me who's wearing the costume, who, yes, I did spend a lot of time thinking about it and working on it and building it and creating it, but it's also Barry Gower who, made him in the workshop in England, and the sound design team, like, well, how would his layer sound? How would the Vecna's, how does he breathe? And then like the camera crew, and it was just, we put a lot of effort and a lot of detail into Vecna, and I think that that's what translates, that's what people see is the work.
I did see an interview with Barry, and first of all, you guys seem like very close friends. And I also love and really appreciate all the work that went through and how he managed to make this costume not only a costume, but something that was a part of you. I read that it was 25 individual pieces in order to put on. It took 7 to 8 hours a day to be in that costume and out of that costume. Can I know, what is a day in the life of Vecna? How do you feel the moment you step into that room and you're like, okay, we're here for another 7 hours. What's going through your mind? Are you processing your lines? Are you trying to think of something else so that you're not too involved in the character?
Well, hopefully I think what I remember doing was walking in there, having spent a few days thinking about what it was that I was going to be bringing forwards into the work that day. So by the time I sat down, those emotions were already coming through and bubbling to the surface. So I'd put on very loud rock music, and we'd listen to that for 7 hours, and then I'd stand up and sit down, and yeah, it was it was a lot, but I think one of the most amazing things about it was the fact that like we were such a team that we knew when we needed to take a break. We just became this like super well-oiled machine, and we saw each other in like, I've got photos in my phone of like night shoots, you know, where we were asleep on the floor of the workshop, you know, just like, okay, we've got to get through this. So a day in the life of Vecna is like wake up at like 2 a.m., get picked up at 2:30, go to work, get into the chair for 3, be sat in the chair for like 7 hours until like 10 a.m., go to set, can't have any lunch, you can't eat because it's like glued onto your lips. So anything that's oily and greasy, which, you know, so much of set food is. I love set food, don't get me wrong, catering's amazing. I'm always down for free food, but you can't really eat. It's really hot in Georgia. It's like really, really hot, really sweaty. And then we wrap, and it takes an hour to pull off, and then I cover myself in moisturizer and crawl back into the van and go home.
And even though it was so hot, you never had heat stroke there. Something about the Hong Kong sun.
Do you know what? It was weird though, because for season 5, I started to see and notice that I couldn't, after doing a Vecna application day, I couldn't go into the sun. My skin would start like pricking, like it would feel like there were little needles in it. It's so dry, and it's also every time you take it off, you're effectively you're pulling a layer of skin off, you're pulling a layer of derma off. I mean, it's like having a chemical peel every time you do it. Never got heat stroke, but definitely drank too much coffee at times, and then found myself being sat in the Vecna suit going, I need to get out. Like, I need to leave.
You can use the washroom though, I hope.
Just about. It's tricky. It's tricky. It's not easy, but yeah, you can. Yeah.
Is that why we saw the change of Vecna's body from season 4 to season 5?
They asked me, they said, what do you need for season 5? I said, more accessibility to restrooms. No, the change was definitely something that Michael Meher, who does it, and Betsy, who do all of our CGI stuff, we spoke about it really, really early on, and it's actually, I don't know how many people know this, but do you know who Weta are? So Weta are the team of people who did all of the Lord of the Rings stuff. And so for this year, for Vecna, the CGI part of Vecna is actually designed by the team at Weta as well, and it's made by them as well. Incredible people, and just an amazing team. And I remember Michael and Betsy, our supervisors, talking to me about it and saying, do bear in mind that this year we want to have parts of Vecna missing, you're going to be slightly bigger, you're going to be able to shoot the vines out of your arms now. And of course, what that means is that it's more of a sort of cross-department collaboration. So as before, it was kind of just myself and Barry and the team, kind of just figuring it out as we go. Now we get to work with the CG team, with the VFX team, with costume even. So the first time we tried on the Vecna costume, I remember looking at my head, because it's here upwards for season 5, and everything else is like a cat suit, and my arm as well. And I remember looking at my head going, my head comparatively to the rest of my body is so big. Like, I look like a bobblehead. What can we do to change this? And we ultimately ended up using American football pads. I spoke to Barry, to bring out the size.
Broaden the shoulders.
Exactly, just so that if I'm interacting with another actor, like they're like, oh, this is still a big scary monster, not, Jamie wearing a silly face and, with anything else that's going on underneath him. So that was really, really cool. That was sick, yeah.
I remember seeing an interview saying, Millie Bobby Brown, the first time she saw you in this suit, she was freaking out because of how realistic it was. And it really goes to show that the prosthetics team took so much time and effort to make it as realistic as possible. And all the cast members also appreciated the fact that there was a real live human being in this costume acting with them. So aside from physically, how do you think being in that costume affects you mentally or psychologically as that character?
I mean, I think the costume is always the Ghostbusters. The costume.
Where are they coming from?
The costume is always the last thing to go on, you know, and and so with that, you know, you've done all the work at home beforehand, and you've thought about the character, and you've been in the emotions of it. Then you put the costume on, and all of a sudden, it's 100%, you know. And I had such an interesting experience, and I always have an interesting experience with costumes, but I remember with Vecna, you know, I went for a fitting with Barry in, I think it was January of 2020, and it was the costume was unpainted. It was just purple and white.
I think I saw footages of that as well.
Right?
You were amazed.
I was so amazed. But I have videos on my phone of me trying the voice in the costume. So I think it's just that final layer, it's that final piece. And then, you know, when it comes to emotionally, I mean, you know, this is a complex, dark, hurt thing that I'm playing and diving into, and I'm having to, you know, not having to, but I wanted to really do the best that I could with that. And that, of course you take that with you sometimes. Of course you do. You can't, it's a project, you're constantly thinking about it. And of course there were times where I was like, I need to go and lay by a river and be near water and just be out in nature. And also, you know, take into consideration that this is a TV show as well, so when we finished season 4, I knew I'd be coming back for season 5. So I have to retain that, you know, I've got to retain the character. And I'm sure the same as you, I've done projects and films and TV shows where I've walked in there and I've gone, okay, this is going to be about, yeah, a bit of character development, but mainly this is going to be about me exposing my heart, which is a great way to make art, and it's a wonderful way. But Vecna and Henry and Mr. Watson were not that. It was like, how much of this character can I build, and how much of this can I create? And so the retention of that and thinking about it and holding on to it for, you know, effectively 5 years was a long time. It was a really, really long time. And it has fundamentally changed my life. I've met the most incredible people. I get to come to Hong Kong and meet all you amazing people and see you. The dedication to the work by the team of people who make this show changed my entire outlook on creativity. But by the time it finished, I was ready to put it down. Yeah.
You only did the one Broadway appearance. I would say that would be something to kind of wrap it all up. But aside from that, I think one of the difficulties of this character was the speech, the dialogue. There were times, I'm sure, Vecna wanted to express more. I remember also seeing that you put the you in one of the scenes. You, right, yes. But I think at times, because dialogue is limited, how do you think that affects you as a character? Or do you think it enhances the mysteriousness or the darkness of this character as well?
I think for any character, I think when you're talking, you want to be making sure that what you're saying is of worth and is poignant, you know. I know a lot of actors, and I've worked with a lot of actors who'll come in on the morning and go, I don't need to say this, I don't need to say this, I don't need to say this.
And that's why they're unions.
Yeah, exactly. So I think with regards to expressing him, I think the thing is with Henry, more so than Vecna, you know, there was so much complexity there. And even in like something like episode 7 of season 4, where Henry has killed all the children, and 11 walks in and he's got that, 8-page monologue, which is a lot of words,
That's probably why you remember episode 7.
Yes, exactly.
season 4.
Yeah, no, it's like burned in my brain. I think I think one of the things in that experience was just about being able to convey all of the experience that he was going through, and so much of that was in the face, but it wasn't something that I took. It wasn't something that I was like conscious of. It just came up as I was going through it, So with Vecna, being able to perform in Vecna is a challenge because you have, however many millimeters of prosthetic on top of your own skin. And I was talking with Barry last week. We were doing some stuff in LA, and he was saying, a lot of actors will be put into prosthetics, and they will overwork the face, and it will ultimately end up looking a bit silly because it's too much. But finding how malleable the piece is and how much you need to use in your facial expressions is really important. So yeah, were there things that I wanted Vecna to say? I mean, I definitely at the end of season 5, I wanted to say please don't to Joyce as she's stepping up and about to kill me. But ultimately that didn't work. We tried it and it wasn't the thing. But you have to try.
There was a lot going on in that scene.
There was a lot, and it's not just about Vecna. Do you know what I mean? Like everyone else is there.
He was still the star of that scene, I must say.
Thank you, gurgling away on my spike.
Now, on a lighter note, you also mentioned that you were listening to music on set. Aside from you being a very successful actor, you also are very passionate about music as well. You've had bands in the past. Yes, we have fans. And as well, you released a single earlier this year. It's a beautiful song, and you're very multi-talented. You play the piano, amongst other instruments. You've been trained professionally as well. How does music affect you as a person first, before it does as an actor? I want to know how music influences you.
Well, I mean, before I talk about how music influences me, I think, the devil makes work for idle hands, so having something to do between making films is such a blessing. Like, it's such a blessing, and I love being creative. It's who I am. It's who I am. And I remember playing shows when I did Sweeney Todd when I was 18, nearly 10 years ago, 20 years ago now, which is crazy.
The math is not mathing.
The math's not mathing. I remember, we used to go and play gigs to like 3 people, and we would drive from London to Brighton. There was one show that we did, we drove from London to Brighton, played the show, the promoter ran off with our money, which was the money that we used for gas, for petrol, but we loved to do it. And this was just after, I'd done this massive Warner Brothers, Tim Burton directed film, and I say that not to kind of massage ego, but I say that to highlight the fact that music and creativity for me, and all art, inclusive of making films and TV, it's just the thing that I love. It's just the thing that I love to do. And so how does music affect me and inspire me? In the same way I think it does for all of us. I mean, I think we all have artists and bands and records that highlight points of our lives. They soundtrack our lives, and I'm no different with that, I think creatively, if I need to be getting into a space, I will pull things that I know will help me get there, that are either talking about them or sound like the thing I'm looking for. But in terms of on a sort of more personal level, yeah, I've got so many records that I put on, and I could be like, oh, I remember, falling in love whilst I was listening to this record. You know what I mean? Like things like that.
As we all do. I read that, we know that you do a lot of metal and rock, but I read somewhere you like country as well, is that right? Yeah. So it just goes to show that music influences us in different ways, and there's a lot of types and genres of music that one can love. But when you're in Vecna mode, what's going on in those headphones? Because there is a very prominent visual in my mind of you in that full costume, sitting on a chair, listening to music. What kind of music does Vecna listen to?
After this, I'll show you a few pictures. I've got one where I'm just like sat in the pain tree, you know, like crouching down with my headphones on. I listen to bands like Knocked Loose. I listen to bands like Norma Jean, Sun O, Architects. Yeah, damn right. Who else was kind of on there as well? I mean, I made a playlist the other day. And I'd have to.
We probably want to look at that playlist.
I need to look. Yeah, I kind of want to hand it over at some point. But yeah, definitely bands like Not Loose, Architect, Suno, Darker, anything that's kind of either like dark, spooky, heavy metal, or even stuff that's more like folk metal, like Frail, are really great. I definitely used a bit more of that for season 5 as well. But always Norma Jean. I always use Norma Jean. It's an amazing, that record All Hail is pretty good.
So nothing completely unexpected from that list, right?
What, like Sabrina Carpenter? Man-child. No, there was nothing that was too unexpected. I think at the end of the day, you know, once we'd wrapped and once we'd finished, there would always be a silly song that would end up, you know, on the playlist just because it was like, okay, we're done. The atmosphere was too tense, you got to let it go. But yeah, no, getting ready for it, no, nothing that would shock you.
Wow. And I think in the entertainment field, it is a luxury to have a niche that you're so good in, which is in acting, but that you also have music as well. Do you feel there are any overlaps, or is it hard to balance the two, or do you separate them quite distinctly?
I mean, at the end of the day, they're just both an opportunity to explore myself and explore what it means to be here, you know, and explore what it means to be a human being and go through the experiences that we will all go through as people. And do I try to separate them? No, I don't try to separate them. I find that I have, you know, I think with music it's always important to have like time. You know, like time is really beautiful for music. But also with that, you know, I remember when we made our first Counterfeit record, I was on stage doing a play, you know, doing, what was it, 8 shows a week. So Monday through to Saturday night, we'd drive to the studio Saturday night, record Sunday and Monday, and then I would drive back to London and go back on stage that night. So whilst I'm here being like, time is great, I had no time when I was making that record, but I was younger and I had more energy in me.
And that's the real day in the life of Jamie Campbell Bower.
That's right, yeah, absolutely.
And aside from that, I also just want to know, would there be an opportunity for, say, a biopic in the future of a musician? Would that be a beautiful way to harmonize everything that you love?
I guess so. I mean, maybe. I would love to do like Iggy Pop. I feel like doing Iggy Pop would be really sick.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, or like, I mean, I know a lot of people have said David Bowie over the years, which would be really cool, and
I see it.
Me too. I mean, I think it's very hard with the rights to the music. I think the estate for Bowie are very, very like, you know, not strict. You know, they want to protect the music, and rightly so. But maybe maybe Iggy Pop. It's always difficult because I think being a musician, there are so many biopics that I watch, and forgive me, I'm going to swear, but there are so many biopics or movies about being in bands that I watch. I'm just like, this is nonsense. This is not what it's like, you know, like Craig, who's here with me this weekend, You know, it's like you drive. I remember our first tour of America. We did 23 shows in 26 days across the entirety of the United States. And, you know, sometimes you're driving for 18 hours. Like, you're literally playing a show, getting in the van, driving to the next gig. It's not that, like, glamorous. And I'd like to see that a little bit more, I think, in films and television, where I'm like, all right, let's really show what it's like to be an up-and-coming, struggling band that just wants to go after it.
I think I hear writers jotting notes already. That sounds amazing. Now, before we wrap up, is there anything else you would love to say to our Hong Kong fans here today? They love you for every role you've been in, as a musician, as an actor. Is there something that we can also foresee and maybe can look forward to?
Yes.
Your upcoming projects?
Coming out soon will be Rings of Power. Season 3. I will be there. We are very much looking forward to sharing that with you. It's very exciting. It's very, very exciting. I can't say too much about it, but it's going to be beautiful. I am so blessed and honored to be a part of that world and to have moved into that world. And I know so many people love it, so I just feel incredibly privileged to be a part of it. And aside from that, again, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for having me back here. Thank you for coming to see me. And I hope you have the most amazing weekend and enjoy this space for all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Let's give a warm last thank you to Jamie for being here today. We hope to see you again in Hong Kong soon. All the best in your future endeavors. Thank you.